This podcast is presented by Warhawk, One War Infinite Battles, only on PlayStation 3.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Podcast Beyond.
Beyond!
I am your host and games editorial manager at IGN.com, Jeremy Dunham. And as always, I am joined today by PlayStation Team Editor-in-Chief, Chris Roper.
Hi.
PlayStation Editor, Jeff Haynes.
How's it going?
And PlayStation Associate Editor, Ryan Clements.
Hello, everyone.
Unfortunately, for the second time in what seems like a month, Greg Miller is not here. He's missed another show. How can he put up with that guy?
I don't have no idea. I'm about to get rid of him.
Well, he's already beat you there because he's taken off for Germany.
He left the country.
Yeah.
So,
well, when he comes back, you can reprimand him.
He's over in Leipzig covering the German Games Convention.
That's right.
Which kicks off later this week.
So the reason, so everyone's clear, one of the reasons that he misses a couple of shows is because he's pretty much our roving reporter.
That's correct.
He does a lot of the traveling, goes out to a lot of these events. So, Greg, good luck.
Hooray!
Bring back beer?
Yes, drink a lot of beer and bring it to us.
After it's already drunk?
Well, no. I meant in addition to, not at the same time.
Beer and bring it to us.
Because what you're referring to may look similar in terms of how they're presented, but not good. It's the beginning of the show. That means it's time for the Roper Report.
Time for some news.
What's in the news, buddy?
So, a few things of semi-interesting importance happened this past week. The first thing, which is after weeks now, it seems, of delays being announced, we finally have good news where the release date for Ratchet and Clank Ratchet and Clank Future Tools of Destruction, it's a long title, is officially coming out on October 23rd, and Insomniac announced such on their Full Moon Show podcast. The game's just over 2 months away from now. So that should be good. It's one of the bigger Sony releases for this holiday season, so that's very good.
Funny you should mention that because if our listeners listen to that podcast and they listen to our podcast, what would happen if those two podcasts collided?
I don't know.
Universe would end.
Possibly.
Beyond Insomnia?
But what I'm curious about is if our listeners would want to see what would happen if maybe we got someone from there to come over here.
A crossover, perhaps.
Exactly. Wonder if that's something they'd be interested in. So if you're interested in that, folks, tell Chris.
Yeah, tell me.
And then
where to write.
And then
Hit the
he'll tell
boards.
me.
Yeah.
Beyond the side of
And then
the
we'll
moon.
tell you what he said that you said.
Yeah. Let's see what else happened. So Sony announced that they are going to begin recycling, in their words, not so much dead, but unused now PlayStation consoles, PlayStation products and stuff. So instead of just throwing, because if you ever are going to throw away basically a computer or monitor or any sort of electronics, you're supposed to recycle it so it doesn't just go in the trash heap. So Sony said, since they create these products and they give them to people, they should also create a way to dispose of them. So now they're taking in consoles they don't use anymore, and basically they're going to create something like 150 drop-off centers in the next year or whatever it is, and then, if your PS1 is dead, you can take it there and they'll recycle it for you. You don't get anything for it. And if you bring in non-Sony products, they actually charge you to drop them off, which is totally awesome. But, if you want to be nice to the environment and don't want to have an old console sitting around your house, you just take it there and stick it in a dump, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I moved over the weekend, but prior to this weekend, I lived right across the street from Sony's Foster City headquarters. I'm still pretty close. I'm still just about maybe 10 minutes away. Think maybe if I drove by one day with just a big stack of video game consoles, they'd take them?
That's pretty good. Yeah, and then, or maybe you can go there and get a bunch out of their dump and, rebuild some sort of Frankenstein PlayStation
That would
creature.
be fantastic. We should do
He's
that.
going to make the
way to do
PS9?
We could turn that into an insider feature.
Yes.
How to build your own obedient servant.
Frankenstation.
We could use Fran's relationship with Matt as an example.
Yep.
Oh, God.
Very good. Let's see. Also, last Thursday, of course, was a PlayStation Network update. On Thursday's update, we saw demos for Dirt and NCAA football, and then various movie trailers of crap that I don't know if anybody cares about. But yeah, so there's a couple game demos on there. And speaking of NCAA in relation to Madden, you like that segue? EA released some sort of press release that said, here's why we screwed up Madden this year on PS3. And basically, after the game launched on 360 and PS3, people were saying, hey, why is the PS3 one inferior to the 360 version? There's a clear difference in how fast the games work. It's not necessarily like running speed, but on the 360 you get 60 frames a second. On the PS3 you get 30. And, it's just much smoother on the 360.
And what did they say?
And EA's response was that this is only their first year working on the PS3 or some crap like that, and basically they've had 3.5 years to work on the 360, and that they've been working with it much longer, and then the PS3 they'll eventually get to the same spot, and there's a learning curves for development and everything, and blah blah blah. They're basically just trying to cover their ass.
Now I can understand the argument that you could say, well, we've been working with the Xbox 360 longer. You should just leave it at that, though. When you say that this is your first year, when obviously it's your second year, it doesn't support your argument very well.
You're asking for a boot to be put up your ass. I mean, like, seriously, there's just no, seriously. I mean, like, part of it too isn't solely just the frame drop. It's also the fact that, like, the 360 is going at 1080 versus 720 on the PS3. So you've got, like, not only the screen issues with, like, the screen resolution, but you've got the frame rate issues, and it's one of those things where it's definitely not what you expect to go on a PS3. It doesn't even come close to taking advantage of everything that the system can do.
Yeah, I mean, even if there are legitimate reasons for why the game doesn't run quite as well, it's it sort of seems like a slap in the face to Sony owners, and it seems like they're just lazy. But
what they should have done to make up for it is have included the full movie in its entirety on Blu-ray of Hard Boiled with every Madden.
Yes.
and then it would be like something that PS3 owners.
Wouldn't you expect like a football themed movie, like
Any Given Sunday?
Any Given Sunday?
Any Given Sunday is a great football movie.
Yes.
I love that movie.
Speaking of Blu-ray,
Longest
that brings
Yard.
up our last somewhat PS3 related news for the week. Is that
Unnecessary Roughness sucks.
Yeah.
Sorry, go
Yes.
ahead.
The program.
just this morning it was announced, this isn't necessarily game relating, but again, it's PS3 related. Just this morning, Paramount and Viacom and all those companies, so it includes DreamWorks and MTV Films and all those things, announced that they're dropping support for Blu-ray movies and going solely to HD DVD, which nobody here in the office doesn't understand, because Blu-ray is way outselling HD DVD, and it's in our opinion a better platform and all this kind of crap. But for some reason they said we're not doing Blu-ray anymore, we're only doing HD DVD.
What's kind of funny about this is after all of the hoopla that's made over HD DVD versus Blu-ray is that Universal has now said that they're reconsidering their stance on HD DVD and are thinking of going to Blu-ray.
And Universal has direct, they're owned by GE or whoever it is.
They have direct interest in HD DVD,
who make players. So I don't know.
It's so weird.
It seems like I would have been totally understanding if Paramount said, "Hey, we're also going to release HD DVD. Cool, make more money." But for them to say, "Screw it, we're not doing Blu-ray anymore," that's like going. I don't know. I don't even know. But it doesn't make it. It's like saying we're not going to make DVDs anymore. We're going to make VHS tapes.
The answer is probably no. But is it possible this could just be a mistake?
Yes.
No,
yes.
it's not.
No, it probably is. And the reason why I say that is because I used to work at Paramount.
Oh.
And they were the slowest bastards when it came to adopting anything technological. Like, a lot of their DVDs, if you compared them to anything else, whereas like other companies would have extras or something else, the only extra they would have would be a trailer. So it's one of those things where they are literally at the back end of the technological curve for anything. And whether it happens to be, going to HD DVD or Blu-ray or actually figuring out what the hell to do with technology, they don't know what they're doing with it. So it's one of those things where they're probably making the mistake, and then 2 or 3 years down the road, Brad Gray's going to come up and go, well, Blu-ray actually is an excellent format for things, and basically try and backpedal from his decision that he made on going solely after HD DVD.
I will give Paramount this: when they were in charge of the Friday the 13th franchise, new movie every year. So I could always count on them every single year that there'd be a new Friday the 13th film. Once New Line Cinema took over, much bigger gaps in between releases.
Yeah.
So New Line, get with it. Is that everything? Damn you! Is that everything in the news, Chris?
That seems to be everything.
Alrighty. Well, this episode of Podcast Bound is a very special episode, and it's very special because it's all about you, the listener. This entire episode, instead of just having a segment dedicated to reader questions, that's what the whole thing is. It's us answering whatever you want to know.
And we'll go on
beyond?
random tangents about your stuff. So hopefully
That's
you
right.
ask very clear and good questions, because otherwise we're going to talk about crap you don't want to hear about.
Or
Right.
you will
So
be beyond, bitches.
Let's see what happens.
BO.
We'll have a little bit on the Beyond a little bit later. You'll
Damn
see.
straight.
Our first question comes from Mega91, and what he would like to know is, what's one thing that we would like to have seen Sony include in Home that isn't in there? Which I think is a very good question.
I think one thing that kind of seemed like that they were going to have, but then apparently they don't, is the ability to meet up with people and then launch into a game and all be grouped together. It seems like, from what I'm understanding, you can launch a multiplayer game, but then you still have to go find the other people in there. So you can't like come together and then clan together and then jump in.
Is that just for certain games?
That seems like the whole deal. Like, I can go meet you online and I can say, hey, let's go play some MotorStorm, and then we'll jump online, and then you have to find me inside of MotorStorm.
Has Sony demoed the actual process of launching a game from home yet to anybody?
They
did it in theory
sort
with, like,
of
the E3
did it
demo.
at E3, but not quite, I don't believe. I don't think they actually
there weren't
did
any
it.
personal demonstrations that anyone here has had.
No. I mean, a lot of what we've been told about what home's going to be has been essentially that. It's been a lot of speaking points, and then some of the general like macro view of what the world is going to be. So you'll be able to do these things, but you don't really have an idea of how exactly it works. So kind of like what Chris was saying, like, do you have to have these people automatically on your friends list, or do you have to add them first, or do you have to pull up like the XMB or add them some other way and then do all these connection things within a game? It is still unclear. Same thing with like certain other interactions or transportation around home. Like if you decide to go to somebody's house and bring somebody with you, do they have to walk there? Do they teleport there? Do they? Like,
I don't know.
God
I didn't
knows.
design things.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Nobody knows. So
I'm
Yeah.
just laughing because I'm picturing like when you leave for a game, like all the people in your room just trash your apartment, like they're like tossing shit around,
tossing TVs and
You're
everything.
like, oh, that was a good game of MotorStorm. Holy shit! And then everything's ruined.
I can't say for sure since I haven't messed with the trophy feature, but I would really like it for the trophy feature to be independent of home, so that if I'm going to look to see what you've done, Ryan, then I can just bring up your trophies and see them like you can on Xbox Live with anybody's achievements, without having to go into home, find your trophy, and walk around. Oh, there they are, and then discover them.
Yeah.
Like the
for me,
rumored
that's
gamer
what would be
card?
important. What's that?
Like the rumored gamer card that supposedly home might have,
Well, there is. Yeah, exactly.
because
So-
nobody knows.
I think
You know-
what would be kind of a cool tie-over is this wouldn't apply for most games, but something like they're talking about with Gran Turismo, you're going to be able to it's going to have tight integration with home. So it sounds like, this is kind of an assumption on my part, but it sounds like you might be able to like take one of your cars from the game and stick it in a virtual garage at home or something like that. You could put up trophies in your house, actually like racing trophies and things like that. It'd be kind of cool if you could do the other way around, where in Gran Turismo you have this. GT5 is going to have My Page where you start up and it shows like your location and stuff. And it'd be kind of cool as if your My Page in Gran Turismo, you could have trophies that you unlocked at home. So if I'm racing you in Gran Turismo, I can see that you also like to play Ratchet and Clank and you beat the game or whatever. I think that would be kind of cool to have, they would sort of bridge the gap between those. But
The sad truth is we don't really know
yeah.
until we can really get our hands on it and play at length. One suggestion I could make to our listeners is if any of you are in the European beta test and want to covertly slip us any information, we won't say who you are. We'll keep you complete. We'll keep it a secret. Well, except for maybe Jeff, who's not good at keeping secrets. But
Well, yeah, Damn.
but
Damn it.
Well, pass along some information. Maybe you can answer some of the questions we have here. Since I think most U.S. people aren't going to get a look at it probably till the end of this month at the earliest, for us to take a look on our own. So, yes, we're relying on you, Europe. SV Tracer 0587. What?
Really?
That's his name.
Wow.
Wants to know if any of us feel that some game genres have become far too bland or recycled. For example, I meaning him, used to be a huge first-person shooter fan, but now can't stand the genre due to its linear gameplay and abuse of sci-fi and alternate reality plots. Do any of you share my opinion or perhaps feel that another genre is becoming too much of the same rehashed idea over and over and over again?
I think that's true for a lot of genres.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the same boat for shooters. I don't, I need something that does something cool, which is why I dug Half-Life 2 like everybody else did. And that's why Bioshock seems pretty cool so far, and all this other stuff, because they're trying to do something new. But if you get into a game and it's just straightforward, shooter, like say something like Painkiller or whatever, you're kind of like, well, I've done this a billion times, and it's okay, but it's not going to make me not sleep in order to play it.
Yeah, it's the same thing with RPGs. I mean, how many times can you be the amnesiac prince of something that winds up waking up in a distant land and has to save a princess or something else from like a malevolent evil
And he
who's going
turns
to
out-
destroy the entire world? I mean, it's...
And he's your father.
And he's
yeah,
part
and he's your
angel.
father. Yeah, I mean, like
Yeah.
there's so many like cliches that wind up going around that part of it is...
And your girlfriend's
what the-
really royalty in disguise.
Exactly. Part of it is really what the twist of it happens to be. And a lot of times there just happens to be so many bland games that are just pumped out in any genre. Doesn't particularly matter if it's like a first-person shooter or anything, but like almost all the genres fall into the exact same like pitfall.
What about you, Ryan?
with what.
Is there anything you find rehashed?
Yeah, I was just gonna say there are a lot of RPGs that just do the same thing over and over again. So I'm basically agreeing with Jeff.
I actually agree with Jeff and yourself as well. My biggest problem with as a huge RPG fan is, particularly this last generation, a lot of the role-playing games from Konami and Square Enix, they were really well put together, high production values, and some of them I really enjoyed. Final Fantasy X, 10-2, Suikoden 3, but as you went along, you noticed that a lot of them really did share so many similar themes with one another, or that we'd seen them before. And man, most of the rehashed RPGs seem to be coming out of Japan, though. It looks like a lot of the westernized RPGs are really kind of doing their own thing between Fallout and Oblivion, the BioWare stuff. It's all really interesting, but it seems like the old studios have kind of really been hanging on to that one key thing that they do well, and they do it well. I'm not going to take that away from them, but I think that I just don't get as excited about those RPGs as I used to because I'm already consigned to the fact that I've probably played them before.
Yeah, when you pretty much know the plot, you're pretty much done. But kind of similar to the whole original first-person shooter thing. Like I was playing Resistance this weekend as just like a wind down from playing another one of these cookie cutter RPGs. And, they've got some of the same things, too. I mean, like, how many times can you have regenerating health to get rid of, like, floating health packs or, med kit stations that are around? I mean, like, there are certain things that I think... Part of it happens to be a cyclical thing within a genre where you get like this hot idea that winds up kind of turning the genre on its head, and everybody goes, "Oh wow, that's kind of cool." And then all of a sudden you see a couple of copycats that'll slowly start to cycle out until it almost becomes like part of the genre makeup. Like every game from here on out has to have like this kind of feature, otherwise it's not really considered to be kind of like up to date.
Well,
or up
part of that has to do with like why reinvent the wheel if it works, and it's also like if you're going to introduce features 1, 2, and 3 to the game, and the players already have to learn those, why make them learn how to manage their health differently than somebody else has already done when it already works?
Right. But
so there's a lot of that.
And I'm going to disagree with you on Resistance. I found that to be a pretty original first-person shooter. Sure, they did share a lot of their mechanics and whatnot with other first-person shooters, but they brought a lot of stuff to the table you hadn't really seen before.
No, I'm
especially
not knocking,
the weapons,
I'm
which
not
I found
knocking
very
Resistance
unusual.
at all. I love Resistance, but what I was saying was more about like the regenerating health thing. I mean, to that degree, you can't really have something like Medal of Honor, which in some places, I think Airborne is doing this. Like they basically have regenerating health if you don't get shot enough times, and it's like that doesn't really make a lot of sense in a World War II context. It makes sense in like a Resistance thing where there's obviously a sci-fi bend to it, or like a Halo or something else, where having something that regenerates your health makes sense, as opposed to just like a first-person shooter where it's like, if I'm not being shot at, all of a sudden my health recycles back to
Call
absolutely
of Duty does
fine
that too.
or nothing.
And that seems to be the new thing, and it makes it so that if you get shot at the very beginning of the level, you're not penalized through the rest of the whole thing, and I don't know. It sort of makes sense. It does make it a little bit easier, but
Yeah.
But I understand that particular design aspect, though. I don't want to replay the same checkpoint in a shooter 77 times because I got accidentally clipped by a bullet at the beginning
Or
of the
by a
stage.
sniper or something, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I can understand that.
I'm ready for Guilty Gear to have new animations in their characters because they've put out like 4 to 5 games and it's the same animation from X2.
How about Dynasty Warriors?
Oh, I'd love that.
Oh.
No, actually, I don't. They really need
Ouch.
to. Man,
Put
you know
a bullet
what?
in that
You know
one.
what?
That's the series that really needs a reboot.
So here it is. So
needs-
I'll tell you what they should do. Dynasty Warriors it's become bland. They've released like 18 Dynasty Warriors games.
Just
they
this
should
year.
they should just change it up and add new characters like robots. I mean,
Isn't that Gundam?
oh,
Isn't that
yeah,
Dynasty
yeah.
Warriors Gundam?
There it is. Oh, but that's not.
Oh, wait. Wait.
Your sarcasm is overwhelming.
Look for my review coming soon.
Well, yeah, I mean, that series really does need a reboot. That, if you want to talk about a genre that's been rehashed to death, it's that. It's the Dynasty Warriors hack and slash formula game.
How many times can the Yellow Turban Revolt be put down?
Apparently, several.
How many?
Yeah. So I'd really like to see that one to be rebooted. Like, I think that a great thing that you could do with Dynasty Warriors is actually maybe get some extra moves, perhaps, and instead of fighting AI, make it a big MMO type of thing where every when you're fighting is a potential Dynasty Warrior.
I just think that there's so much more with the Three Kingdoms. I mean, like, goddamn, do something different. Like, please.
Three Kingdoms, man. There's a lot of those that come out all the time too.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Koei is the master of finding. Well, we should say Koei and Capcom both are the masters of finding new ways to expose the same game they've been making for a very long time.
Change costume colors and call it Turbo Championship.
Exactly.
Yes.
Capcom did it very well with Street Fighter and Mega Man, and Koei does it with everything it creates.
Ouch.
It's true.
Everything except for Crimson Sea, which is the series I really enjoyed that there's only been 2 of. Manicus 2K wants to know if we feel that the 360 is hitting its stride faster than the PS3 because of the hardware being easier to program for, and do we feel that the PS3 has a lot of potential yet to be unlocked, which could lead to a longer lifespan and longer higher peak than the 360?
I say yes to both of those. I mean, one thing, remember, the PS3 is almost universally acknowledged as being harder to program for than the 360, but the 360 was also out the year before the PS3, and we're also talking about when SDKs hit developers, so developers have had an extra year on the 360. And then also, plus, it's easier to develop for. It's more like, you have, like, nobody will tell you that Microsoft's stuff is hard to program for because Microsoft is great at software, and their whole thing is based around development, platforms and all this kind of stuff, and like their coding, all of those things they have are fantastic. They've great support to all their developers, and Sony is a hardware manufacturer, so the PS3 is a more powerful system. Everybody will tell you that, and has more potential, but you have to work on the software.
Is it really more powerful? I think it has more storage capacity, but in terms of raw power, is it really that, or is it comparable? I think it's comparable. I think the PlayStation 3's only real advantage is its storage medium.
I think depending on what you're doing with it can be more powerful. I think you have something simple, like if you're creating a first-person shooter and you're just running down hallways and shooting things, then it's going to be about the same on both systems. But if you're doing very complex, like if you have like fluid simulation going on and crazy like on-the-fly sound processing and all this other kind of crap, then you'll see the PS3 have a little bit of an edge in some of those areas.
Yeah, and I think that the other part, just to build on what Chris is saying, is nobody's actually really tapped into it yet. We haven't had some team just kind of hunker down with a PS3 dev kit for multiple years and just crank out something that is going to blow us away. I mean, the closest one that I think is probably the one that everybody's expecting, even outside of MGS4, is like Final Fantasy 13, either one of them. Because like everybody knows that
Killzone.
That Square Enix.
Oh, yeah, Killzone, yeah.
Well, Killzone. But the thing is, we know those, and we know that those have tangible dates that are in the next like 6 months or whatever. We have no idea what the hell Square Enix is going to do.
Yeah.
But we do know that when they come to the table with a game, they squeeze so much more out of a system than was even thought possible. So if you actually have a team that knows what the hell to do with a system and manages to make like magic with all the hardware, that's when you start getting those experiences, and you can then sit back and go, you can't get this on a 360. The only problem is we're probably at least another year to 2 years possibly away from seeing something like that.
I think that's much sooner than that. I think a lot of people are selling short the fact that the PlayStation 3 has a lot of really strong exclusive software coming out this year. Warhawk comes out in a couple of weeks. Then you have...
Actually, it's next week.
Oh, Jesus, it is, isn't it? Yeah, next week. Wow. Yeah,
Holy
Warhawk's
crap.
next. Time flies way too fast.
Yep.
My anniversary's tomorrow. I better not forget that.
Oh. Yeah, you better not. Especially if your wife is listening to the
I
podcast.
know.
You better
She
say
does.
hi.
She listens to it every
You better
week.
say hi.
Hi, honey. And today's Hillary Goldstein's wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Yay. Yeah, he got married a day before I did, but a few years later, if that makes any sense. Anyway, they're selling it short. There's, the Uncharted, Ratchet and Clank, Heavenly Sword, Warhawk. All those games are this year. And then next year you have Killzone and MGS4. And I Burnout, it may not be an exclusive software title.
White Knight Story.
But but Criterion has been very upfront in saying that the PS3 version is running better. It's built around the idea of the PlayStation 3. We like what it has to offer. So
Right, and I'm not saying that like those games aren't going to be incredible, because I think that they are, and I think that what we've seen are really impressive too. But the thing that I think that is really going to possibly put this debate to an end is
it will
going
never
to be,
come to an end.
It's never going to come to an end.
It will never end.
Obviously it will never end, but there will be something.
There'll be nothing to do it. I promise you.
There could be.
There are still people arguing about which system was more powerful, the Dreamcast or the PlayStation 2.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that was 8 years ago.
People get so heated up for that stuff.
They do.
It's amazing.
And people will still argue with you over which was the
Think
better
different.
system between the PlayStation and the N64 and Genesis and Super NES. And it's just brand loyalty and So the argument will never end. But I
Yeah.
can tell you, in my opinion, that I think that you're going to start to see the benefits of the PlayStation 3. I think there's going to be very shortly. The upswing, I think, starts with Warhawk next week. I think that it's going to dip a little bit when Lair comes out. And then I think that when you go forward after that with all the other games, like Heavenly Sword, I think is going to surprise a lot of people.
Yep.
And I think it's going to continue to go upwards after that. I'm just really bummed that I don't cover PlayStation products on a daily basis anymore, because now that I have a review copy of Heavenly Sword, I have no way to play it. I had to give it to our guides team. Sad, sad me. Speaking of Lair, Rogue Leader, our weekly contributor, would like to know if there's any possibility of a Lair PSQ soon. Definitely. We have the review build. You guys want to do that next week?
Yeah, sure.
Who's reviewing it? Greg is?
Greg is reviewing it. He's in Germany right now, so we might want to give him a little bit after that.
Yeah,
So-
you know what? Well, why don't we shoot for 2 weeks then? Because in 2 weeks, it'll be timed with the release of the game. And Greg will be back from Germany and have the time to play it for review anyway. So we could do it basically the day before it comes out.
Yep.
So that's what we'll do. 2 weeks from this podcast, we'll go ahead and we'll give you a Lair PSQ. I can tell you based on what I've seen of Chris playing it and a few other people dabbling with it, it doesn't look very fun.
No, that game looks painful.
Would you say painful?
Yes, I would say painful to the eyes.
I wouldn't go that far. I'd just say it looks a little repetitive.
Like
That-
when my
that damn
dragon
thing-
ran into the wall. Remember that?
Well, the
Save it for the
flare.
PSQ.
Oh, God. Jesus.
Yes. All right. Another question. This one comes from Nutjob Jim.
Have we talked on the job before?
Yes.
We have, yeah.
Yeah. His question is, Infinity Ward claims that the PS3 version of Call of Duty 4 will run at 60 frames per second with full anti-aliasing. Have you seen the PS3 version, and does it look as good as the 360 PC versions? Chris Roper.
Infinity Ward did indeed have the game at E3. Playable. It was definitely playable. I forget if they were letting you grab the controller or not. I wasn't assigned to it, so I didn't play it then. Too much other crap to do. But anyway, previously to that, I had seen the 360 version in great detail. And when I was at E3 and I looked over and I saw Call of Duty running, I forgot that I was in Sony's booth and assumed it was running on the 360. So if that tells you anything, like the game runs extremely well. I don't know if it's 60 frames a second because I can't count that many frames, but it was running very, very smoothly. And
It looked faster than 30?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very smooth. And as for full scene AA, I don't know. That was a while ago, and I couldn't, you can't ask me any side-by-side comparisons about which one looks better, the 360 or the PS3, because they weren't side-by-side. And it had been, a month since I had seen the 360 one, but the game does look fantastic. You're not going to go wrong playing on the PS3 unless there's some sort of major screw-up, but there's not going to be. That game is awesome.
As a PS3 owner, one thing I'm hopeful for is that now that starting this season, since the PS3's been out a while, I don't think you're going to run into that problem as much as we did before of the PS3 version running as terribly as it did compared to the 360 version. Because before, let's face it, all the PS3 games were ports of the 360 version, and now everything's being designed concurrently as opposed to having to figure out how to move it over afterwards. So I think that you're going to start
Unless you're
seeing.
EA.
Well, maybe. I mean, maybe if you're Madden, sure, but is that gonna
Or
hold up
NCAA.
for? Is that gonna hold up for Army of Two or The Simpsons or any of the other games that they're working on? Who knows? That's hard to say. But for Madden, it was definitely an issue, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Don't worry, folks. The Madden question is coming. He also has a suggestion, by the way, Nutjob. Like everyone else, he'd like to see us try to secure more guests for Beyond in the future. Dylan Job was a great guest. So hopefully we can get somebody from Insomniac, Naughty Dog, Sucker Punch, Gorilla, Ninja Theory, Media Molecule, etc.
Oh, just a few to name.
We are in negotiations with getting a couple people on here. The biggest problem that we run into with most folks is scheduling, especially with their games about to come out. It's really hard to get them to come out here.
Yeah, scheduling the fact that none of their studios are here. A lot of Sony studios are in the LA area, or if you're Media Molecule, they're in Europe somewhere.
You're on the other side of the ocean.
Yeah, so
Ninja Theory also.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, when people are in town, then we're going to try to do whatever we can to get them on here.
We can always throw them on the phone. People don't mind hearing that whole radio call-in static.
Yeah, maybe.
We could do that. Yeah, pretty
Throw it on
much.
speakerphone.
But yeah, we do plan on bringing more people in, including some pretty big names.
Yeah.
We're not going to give you a time frame though until we've got them confirmed, because we don't want to build up any false hopes and then tear them down.
Right.
Like we've been known to do before. LHK2 would like to reiterate on the Madden question. What do we personally think about Madden 08 being 30 frames on the PS3? Do we think that Microsoft had a hand trying to give the game an edge over the PS3 version? You know, money hats.
Well, here was something interesting. Now, I wasn't thinking about this before. It just clicked on me. At Microsoft's press conference at E3, they stood up there on the stage and they said, Peter Moore said, right before he left to go to EA, he said, guess what? Xbox 360 is going to be the only place to play EA games at 60 frames a second this year. And they stood up there. Clearly, this was known beforehand. It was some sort of like EA promised them PS3 wasn't going to run at it. Now, whether that meant that they were going to intentionally hold back the PS3 version or they knew that it wasn't going to sit it there, whatever. But imagine if they had made this announcement and then the Madden team comes across something and they click and they move half of the rendering system to another SPU and all of a sudden it runs at 60 frames a second. What would they have had to do then? Would they have had to clock it back and let that not happen? So, I mean, this is a giant conspiracy theory, but
I don't think that there were any money hats involved
not
whatsoever.
That. And can we please kill the fucking money hat thing? Because it's
that'll
insane.
never go away either. By the way,
yeah, I know that'll never go away either. It's a utopian dream, but like we've actually known
utopian dream.
We've known that the. Shut up, Ryan. We've known that Madden was not going to be 60 frames a second for quite a while. Like we actually were told that at least a month or so ago by people at EA, partially because they were having some trouble getting the game to run at a solid 30, and that was one of the things that we were just going like, well, you know, that really sucks, but we'd really hope that in the next month you can actually like pull it back up.
Does this matter though? Honestly, the whole 60 frames versus 30 frames. Isn't it all the only thing that matters? This sure that matters for cross-platform owners, but if you're just a PS3 owner and that's the only system you're going to get, that's the only system you're going to support. Does it really matter how it performs on another system? Don't you care if the football game is good or not, and that's it?
You know what?
Honestly, at the end of the day,
I think that there is actually a difference, though, because when you get used to a lot of other sports games running at 60, and then you down throttle down to 30, it feels different. It feels slower. It feels like you have to over anticipate, or you have this lag, and because everything has been pushed so far at 60, where everybody is expecting like every game to basically be running at 60 frames a second automatically at maybe 1080p or 1080i or like the highest resolution that you can possibly get now. If you start to go backwards, all of a sudden you start feeling like you're going to an older like generation of game or software.
Obviously, your high point of football games was not NFL Game Day 95. Mm-hmm. Which was a fantastic 30 frames per second football game.
Yeah, but you know, like it's not solely about just being a graphics whore and going like it has to be at this speed rate or it has to be at this frame rate or it has to be this beautiful to actually enjoy the game. Part of it is just simply like from what I recall, just hearing Hillary talk about it, that there were frames that would drop, so you would have like just these hitches.
That's a great point.
These issues, and the thing is like, you know, if you wind up running into these technical issues, even if you only happen to have a PS3, you're going to feel cheated, especially if you're going to pay $60 for a game that is not going to take advantage of that $600 piece of hardware.
And one thing I didn't think of before when I posed that question also is it runs at 60 on the PS2. So when you're going from 60 on PS2 to 30 on PS3, obviously that is going to have a big effect. So that's a great point.
Yeah, it's a serious kick in the nuts.
For me, personally, how do I feel about it? I don't care. Chris?
I don't care either.
Yeah, you guys aren't sports players. I mean,
I'm a sports gamer all the time. I play it. I don't like to cover sports games. I like to play them. It's certain games I like to play and not cover. Mm-hmm. The more I was doing RPGs, the more I started going that direction too. I'd much rather play them than have to sit there and break them down. Because when you cover these games, a lot of the stuff gets spoiled for you in RPGs when you're covering big story-based epics. Having them tell you basically how it ends before you've even started playing it yet sucks. So at that point, I was like, what RPG fans can I hire so I can actually enjoy some of these games? Now, I think it's a terrible move if this happens again next year.
It's an injustice.
I think that they can justify one more year, and one more year meaning this one, since they already did it once last year, and last year seemed to run smoother than it did this year.
It did. It was actually a little bit smoother. There were only a few drops. It was for a launch title, and the first time that it had actually been on the PS3. It wasn't that bad last year. It was, you could obviously tell that they had migrated a lot of it over from the 360, which is understandable. They only had a few months, and they were trying to get used to it anyway. So, because of the whole launch thing, you had an idea that, okay, they were going to let that go. You kind of let that slide, and then you expected more out of this one, and it wasn't there. And so I think that's probably like part of the biggest letdown.
So, Jeff, you reviewed the PS2 version of Madden. Would
Yeah.
you say that it's a better investment for PS3 owners since they can play PS2 games on their PS3? If 60 frames is really a big a deal, is it worth picking up the PS2 version? Or is the PS3 version, in your opinion, strong enough to still get on its own, just expect there to be some issues?
I'd probably go for the PS3 one anyway. I think that part of the problem, even with the PS2 version being having a stable frame rate, is that a lot of the features don't really work the way that you expect it to. Like the weapon system, completely useless. The fact that they're targeting a casual gamer, which doesn't fully work. Like they throw in a lot of games, they throw in a lot of tutorials, but you don't really get a sense that helps you either become a stronger Madden player or that it's enough to really keep you interested. The hardcore sure as hell wouldn't want it. And for those players that are actually looking for Madden, the way that Madden is supposed to be, or the experience that you're going to get, the PS3, even with all the issues, it is going to be the better version. That being said, you still have to have that caveat of going, you know what, this still isn't what it should be. It's not as strong, it's not as deep. Whether or not the score reflected that or not, that's kind of a toss-up. That's one of those things that, Hillary justified with his review. Like, considering that I had kind of the same thing with NCAA, and I gave it 0.5 less, that was my personal opinion. Same with Hillary having his opinion on what he gave Madden.
So the moral of the story is get the 360 version.
Yeah.
David Dowell asks if we could tell him a little bit about the Sony event that was embargoed last week, that was held 2 weeks ago, that Ryan went to.
Hello.
And he wants to know specifically, in addition to a general overview, if you can talk about SOCOM Confrontation and whether or not it was there.
No, there is nothing SOCOM besides Tactical Strike SOCOM.
Which looks pretty
is
good
cool.
from what I understand.
It was actually, I only got very limited hands-on time with it, but it was pretty fantastic from what I tried. And the guy who was demonstrating it, I guess at the beginning of the presentation, he was showing some of the later levels, and he was like using a lot of strategy, and it looked pretty awesome. I'm actually looking forward to it, and I haven't followed SOCOM very closely before.
How much Killzone Liberation did you play?
None actually.
Oh my lord!
We
hired this guy.
Be owned!
That's actually, I would just like to let you know that's on my list of things that I wanted to play. I want to catch up with Killzone before Killzone 2 comes out.
Okay, good.
No, that's absolutely something that I would want to play, because
Okay.
I read the IGN review and it said it was good.
By the way, we're going to get 2 types of letters from that. We're going to get letter number 1 that's like, I can't believe Ryan has not played Killzone. And then the other one's like, I can't believe what a dick Jeremy is to Ryan.
Yep.
It's going to be those 2. Or maybe we might get a third, which is both of those.
Is it the same
Yeah.
guys?
Possibly. I don't know. But what else do they have at the show?
Okay, so basically it's all past embargo, so I can talk about it fully, I think. The first day we went to Insomniac, Nick and I, who was one of the video guys, and they showed us basically just Ratchet and Clank Future. There was really nothing else going on there. And then the next day it was SOCOM Tactical Strike. So it was just focused on those 2 games, doing interviews, taking direct feed, getting a little hands-on time. That was basically it. The highlight of the trip, in a horrifying sort of way, was the fact that at the SOCOM event we had to do airsoft, which is it's kind of like paintball, except they're small plastic pellets. We had to do
They
that.
explode on contact.
Well,
We lost good men that day.
There are good stories about that, but we had to do that against professional airsoft players with the training of actual Navy SEALs. So you're putting a pack of game journalists against professional airsoft players, and it was not a good mix at all. We got our asses kicked.
That's awesome.
It was very funny.
I wish. Did we film that?
No, I don't think Nick got anything.
Our video team failed.
Oh,
No,
be
he
owned.
really didn't though. He did it. He was just like all over that event. He was really good.
Cool. FF Obsessed 86 wants to know what we expect to see at Leipzig and TGS in the next month.
Games.
I think we're going to see some games there.
It's a good pick.
And maybe some Germans and Japanese folks.
I think Leipzig's going to be. I think Leipzig's going to be a pretty decent showing for Sony. I think that's going to be more of a focus for Microsoft, especially since it dumped XO7, and that's not happening. So I think that there's going to be a really nice highlight on its products there. I think that Sony's going to be probably more into the TGS scene.
Yeah, that's the homeland for the PS3. So
Yeah. I still think you're going to see some stuff out of Killzone. You're in Europe. It's a big European debut there. We already know that they're going to have some stuff on Killzone there.
Yep.
They haven't really said to what extent that Killzone stuff is going to be, but it'll be there. And I think you can. Hopefully, we'll see some of the other stuff like Wipeout. I'd really like to see finally.
some more Little Big Planet stuff.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to
Probably
that.
some more Heavenly Sword that
That
videos
game's
or something.
finished, so I'm sure that'll be there.
Yeah, maybe even some more of those making of things that they've been rolling out on the PSN.
Those anime are pretty cool too. If you guys haven't had a chance to download the anime episodes, they're like 30 seconds long, but they're pretty rad.
And if it makes the world feel better, they're also on the disc
Oh, really?
on Heavenly Sword.
Oh, nice.
They're
you
unlockable content.
You have to unlock them,
Yeah.
which is very strange because you can download them and watch them ahead of time.
But you have
What's the point?
maybe they figured that no one would be able. Maybe it was too hard to unlock.
I don't know.
Maybe that's it.
I don't know.
But I think TGS will be a very strong show. I think you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff out of their Japanese studios. You're going to see a huge presence from Metal Gear. I'm positive of that.
Yep.
I think that you're going to see a focus on maybe something like White Knight Story, hopefully with a new title. Actually, that's what I've been hearing is that might get a title
really?
change. Yeah.
That wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
better than what was
But
the wrestling game?
it's literal though. Is the thing is that it's translation from
Yeah.
Japanese. It's a literal. They want something a little bit with a little more punch. So I've been hearing that it's
roundhouse
being
kick.
thrown around to rename it in America, but we'll see if that actually happens. Sometimes it doesn't.
Gray Knight Story.
Yeah, there you go. That'll do it. But I know that you're going to see a lot from the Japanese studios like Sega and Konami.
Mm-hmm.
Any inside words you guys would care to share?
No, I
They
think
won't get
got-
you in trouble.
I think you have most
Yeah.
everything. But yeah, I mean, I'm expecting to see some more Devil May Cry stuff there, and yeah, we should see.
I'm really hopeful that at that show, Capcom will finally say when that game is coming out.
And I do know for a fact that at Leipzig there'll be some Gran Turismo stuff. Yep.
Excellent.
So some new stuff. It's not just like a.
And that's going to
whatever.
be Gran Turismo Prologue oriented, or is it stuff after Prologue?
TBD, but remember, all of Prologue stuff also applies to GT5.
Right. But what
So-
I'm curious about is like, hey, check out what we can do in GT5, but you won't be able to experience it in Prologue. Or are we going to be able to do it right off the bat when
I don't know.
Prologue comes out?
That's to be determined.
Okay.
But I mean, Prologue's right around the corner, so I know people are having meetings with Kazunori, and so he's going to be playing the game for people, and then he'll do some Q&A and stuff, and yeah, so there should be some pretty cool stuff come out of
So
there.
our listeners know, as you know, that Greg is over in Leipzig covering the event for us, at least on the Sony side. Who's going to go to Tokyo Game Show this year and cover it for the PlayStation guys?
That's me.
That is Jeff. So Greg is Leipzig. Jeff is TGS. You guys know who your roving reporters will be. We'll have to sing a song in your honor while you're gone.
I'm expecting I'm turning Japanese, but that's
That's pretty
just
good.
an early guess for
But
Greg.
that's too obvious. You see, they'll be
Well, no
expecting
kidding.
that one.
Yeah, I know.
We talked about that on the press event, actually, that I went to. The whole bus of game journalists were talking about that song. It was,
Really? Oh, I thought you were talking about Podcast Beyond, which was like awesome.
Taking over the world.
Unfortunately, no.
Maddenberg has a question that's not Madden related, and he highlights that actually. In a previous podcast with Dylan, he brought up God of War 2 and how incredibly awesome it was. That really got him to thinking about God of War 3. Since the first and second game got 9.8 and 9.7 respectively, what do you think it'll take for God of War 3 to get the same or even better in terms of our score? Chris Roper mentioned in his video review, which I loved, by the way, Chris, you rock, keep it up, that it was more of an evolutionary step rather than a revolutionary step. Well, that's a good line.
Yeah.
What would GO3 have to do for you to consider it a revolutionary step? And if it accomplishes this and maintains itself as the highest quality game on the console, would you score it higher than the previous two?
Well, here's one of the things. One of the reasons that those games scored so high is because they were above anything that we had expected from them. And so it's like, if I expect this, and this, and this, and this, and that's exactly what Sony delivers, and then that's not going to wow me as much as something they come out of left field with, and I'm completely blown away. And that's where you get those 9.8, 9.7 scores they've done. speaking generally, not necessarily what they need to do to score a 9.8 or whatever. Again, I think what they need to do with the PS3 game is, obviously the art's going to be better, which I'd be interested to see how they blend, the kind of cartoony style almost with, realistic violence or whatever they're doing, because they've drawn a pretty cool line right there. So it'd be nice to see what they do when their artists are unleashed a little bit more. But they basically, they need to make the worlds more interactive. They need bigger set pieces that do more stuff as opposed to staying more static. Things that like move around and whatever. It's just basically just a bigger experience. I mean, it sounds really stupid and sounds like I'm kind of just not really saying anything, not really answering the question. But I mean, their whole thing is like the whole game needs to be bigger. The whole game needs to.
They need more violence. It's just way too passive of a game.
I mean, a little more blood. But yeah, I mean, Santa Monica's done right the first 2 times. I don't expect them to do anything wrong the third. So.
Manberg also has a suggestion for another segment we should add. After listening to last week's podcast and hearing you guys rip on Rogue Leader a bit, I couldn't stop laughing, especially when someone being Jeff, said, Beyond. Thus, you need to add a segment simply called Beyond, which would be similar to a best or worst week ever kind of a thing, which, by the way, rips off the soup. So give credit where credit is due. Mm-hmm. Where you talk about something that happened in the industry which sucks or a game that fails miserably. You could also include things that are news flashes or megatons. For example, Peter Moore to EA could have been something that was Beyond, or MGS4 going to 360 would be Beyond. Stuff like this. Just generally shocking things. So I just broke my pen. If you heard that snap, I broke the pen. Milk, it does a body good. So what do you guys think about adding that segment?
Paramount.
It's fine.
Yeah,
we already have a bunch of segments though. So
that's right.
Paramount got Beyond.
We'll think about it.
Yeah.
Although I think that probably part of it's just going to be like, it'll be pretty obvious when something gets Beyond, and I'm sure that we'll just shout it out anyway. So.
Plus, Jeff has a little bit of the Tourette's, and he'll probably shout it out randomly anyway.
Beyond! Fuck!
We're getting a letter for that one.
I know the proper way to say his name, but I just think it's funny to always mess it up. So I am Akin wants to know from me particularly who I think would win in a fight between Wolverine from Earth 616 and Bigby Wolf. If you guys don't know who Bigby Wolf is, he's the I would say lead character or co-lead character of the Vertigo comic series Fables, which is one of my favorite comics next to the Hulk. And that's a tough call, but Wolverine has got the adamantium claws. He'd rip him up. But the benefit that Bigby has is since he's a Fable and everyone's heard of the Big Bad Wolf, he'd just come right back to life again. He doesn't have the physical prowess to hang in there with Wolverine, even though he can transform into a giant wolf. You should see the way the room is looking at me right now. It's pretty awesome. But I'd lean towards Wolverine in that one. Just to let you know.
Good times.
The Great One 18 would like to know if it would be possible for us to add a Blu-ray movie segment on the podcast where we talk about a movie of the month or a few good movies on Blu-ray that everyone is enjoying. Maybe have a guest from IGN DVD come on the show every now and then. Guys?
Well, the DVD guys are in LA.
So that kills that.
Screw those
Are
guys.
they even? Or actually, they're I don't know. They're somewhere not here, so it doesn't matter.
Far away.
Yeah, some of the entertainment guys are all over the place. But I don't know. The Blu-ray segment would be kind of cool. I guess that'd be a nice little wrap up, say at the end of the month or something.
300. Get that Blu-ray.
Yeah, 300 is the best DVD. Best Blu-ray
it's
out.
awesome. And Casino Royale is really good. And also look for the Spider-Man trilogy on Blu-ray, which is going to be $100, but you get all the movies.
How's Fifth Element on Blu-ray?
The first release was just a straight transfer from the original DVD, but they just re-released it, and now they actually properly upscaled it.
Does it look good? Have you tried it yet?
I have not.
Oh, okay.
But the first one I saw running, and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't too impressed.
See, I can't really say that I've actually seen any Blu-ray movies. But then again, like I sent off for the.
You don't watch any of them on your PS3?
Well, I don't have any of them. Like I sent off for the 5 free ones. But like if I usually watch a movie, like I'm usually watching on like a DVD that I like, will bring with me into like the bedroom if I'm going to
You
like
can rent
watch
them now,
something
though.
or whatever.
Yeah, I always buy the
like,
Blu-ray.
Yeah.
But
Unless they don't make it.
usually if I'm going to do anything on like my PS3, I'm like playing games. So I mean, like it's just one of those things where like I haven't had the crossover yet, and I'm sure like if I bought a second PS3 and I had it like solely for a TV or whatever, I probably watch a lot more.
You know, you
Blu-rays
can use the
than-
same PS3 to watch movies and play games.
Yeah, no, I do know that.
Okay.
But like usually, I spend more of my time playing games than caring about watching movies.
Armed and Ready wants to know if we prefer waffles or pancakes.
Miller Pancake House.
That one's that's a close call. I'm gonna have to give the edge. Actually, I don't even know.
It is close.
That's a man.
Depends on the
It's
mood,
very
really.
close.
Man,
Yeah.
okay, because if you're talking plain stuff, I kind of prefer waffles because they got the little air pockets in there, and like you put the syrup over, and they get stuck in the little individual syrup pools, and that's nice and tasty. But the pancakes afford you more experimentation. Put some apple chunks in there. Put some chocolate chips up in that piece.
And we go to this
Just Millbrae
fantastic
Pancake House.
Yeah, the Millbrae Pancake House. There, for those of you in the Bay Area, I urge you to go there. They're on El Camino Real, and where else but Millbrae, since they're called the Millbrae Pancake House. And if you want to get there from the 101, get off on the Millbrae exit.
We're
And then
sponsors.
if you're going south, you make a right on El Camino, and then follow it up about 4 or 5 blocks. It'll be on
And
your
it's on the
left-hand
left-hand
side.
side, yeah.
If you're going north, do the same thing because it's the only exit you can get off of.
That is the
But
shit, isn't it?
you've got to try them. They have the best pancakes I've ever had in my life.
Any
And I'm
breakfast-
a portly dude. I've had a lot of pancakes.
Any breakfast that if you order a cheeseburger, you don't get them. If you order an omelet or anything else,
Yeah.
you'll get free
Pancakes.
They're really good.
And there's a giant, when you go in there, look for this, near the little counter where the
yeah.
food comes up, there's a
God.
giant, like,
Mountain.
beach,
It's a mountain.
It's a size of a beach ball, basically, of a mountain of butter. It's just this giant-ass slab that's,
They're so good.
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And they're cheap.
And everything in the whole restaurant is sticky.
Yeah, that's true.
It's all sticky.
because we're in
the
syrup.
chairs.
You might even see us there every now and then. We don't go as often as we used to, but we should go there more often.
Yeah, it's very tasty.
We endorse that place heavily.
It's good times.
Free sponsorship.
And he just wants us to know that he really likes waffles, but many others say pancakes. Please settle the debate.
I prefer cereal.
The greatest thing about
Get out of here.
Beyond, you fail.
The greatest thing about the Millbrae Pancake House, it serves waffles and pancakes.
Yes.
It's true.
What's wrong with cereal?
You can get cereal anywhere. You can go to a
Dude,
supermarket
I'm not
and
going
get
to eat
that.
cereal at a restaurant, obviously. I
And
just
you-
meant in general.
And you really, without a whole lot of hassle, can't make your own cereal at home.
Yeah.
You can make pancakes and you can
Or
make
waffles.
waffles.
That's right.
You can't make your own cereal. You just pour it in a bowl and you add milk.
You're
Yeah,
not
but
making
you don't make the
granola
flakes.
or any
You
of
don't
the flakes or shit like that.
I've never made a bowl.
No.
2779 wants to know what happened to IGN Weekly. He addresses it directly to me. I didn't do anything to it.
It's your fault.
That's actually that is part of our plans. It will be coming out and being relaunched in the autumn, and we're still hashing out a couple of details about that. So we really can't say too much on it yet, except for that it is coming back. It will be sometime in the autumn, but other than that, we have to keep it hush hush because number one, we want to surprise folks, and number two, we're still figuring out what that surprise is going to be. 2779 also wants to know what your thoughts on harvesting little girls in Bioshock are. I don't think we should talk about it because I haven't played the game yet, and I don't want any hint of a possible spoiler. Mm-hmm. Damn my moving. We moved. I couldn't play it all weekend long. I was very upset about that.
It's good, though. If you have a 360, get it.
All right. I have one.
I'm just saying to the readers.
It's just sitting there, useless. It's
Yes.
terrible. LHK2, again. No. He just repeated.
Beyond.
It's just no. This question got on here twice, so
Okay.
we could ignore that one. What happened to Snake Ball from H Rooster? It's still coming. I asked Sony about this last week because for those of you who are curious, I maintain the master review list here at work. I check out everything. I'm always asking them what's coming out. I asked that exact question. I said, "Hey Sony, what's up with Snake Ball? What happened to it?" And they said, "It's still coming." So it's still coming.
Snake
very
ball.
good.
Renderman wants us to force Ryan to sing "Walking in the Air" without interrupting him, and he's looking at me, Jeremy. Apparently, I interrupt
He's looking
Ryan
at
too
you
much.
through email.
Yeah, we're running out of time, which is why I'm zooming through these,
Yeah.
so that we can get to that song you so very much crave. Some other questions.
Are we going to have time for the song?
We always have time
always
for the
have
song.
time for a song.
Also from Renderman to Ryan. He wants to know. I guess he's a fan.
Oh, awesome.
Wants to
Thank
know. He all knows that you're secretly the best caster on Beyond. What do you think is your best feature?
My best feature?
Your best feature.
Do, 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 do,
Thank you, Jeff.
I
Seriously, dude.
think it's his quick mind.
Yes. your witty retort.
Well, I didn't want to sound that witty repartee.
Basically, I didn't want to sound like a jackass and be like, well, obviously, it's the fact that I'm incredibly handsome or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's not that.
So that's your answer?
thanks.
Okay, there you go. Swing and a
my
miss.
attempt to always be nice. I try my best to maintain a nice demeanor
I
as
will
much as
say-
possible.
What the fuck?
I will say you are probably the nicest person we've ever had working here. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for sure.
Yeah,
I
too
think the
Mostly, though, we hire assholes, so.
Yeah, it's true.
Jesus.
I think the ultimate question though is how long will you be able to stay nice before we corrupt you?
I was
Because-
talking to the guys about this on the way to lunch, and after college, none of the guys that I hung out with really rubbed off on me at all. And if I can survive 4 years of the biggest,
College is
but I was
theory.
living with those people.
Keep in mind, when Fran showed up here, he was coming to work
He
in
was
suits,
virginal.
and he was
He would
very
never swear.
upstanding young
Yeah.
man. And now, if you talk to him,
He's fucking Serpico.
He's crazy. He's a psycho bastard.
He also wants to know if he thinks that, or if I think I'll ever amass an HD DVD or Blu-ray collection that's as big as my DVD collection. I hope not. I'm running out of room. I really hope not. I'll probably just be replacing a lot of the movies I already own.
Yeah.
Wow, we are almost completely out of time. So let's just get to the song, shall we?
Well, do we have a pick of the week or do we not?
No,
Here.
our pick of the week is play what you want.
Oh man! Okay, so we didn't announce it this time because the last recording got screwed up. But at the beginning of the podcast, we found this foam box, and I built a foam Lincoln
It's
log
pretty
tower,
tall.
if you will. Yeah, it's got to be, I don't know, 1.5 feet tall, and it's a bunch of layers. It's basically like a Lincoln log type thing. But Jeremy, it's been sitting here the whole time, and Jeremy just bumped it with the question paper, and it withstood the might of that.
So it's very wisely engineered. Good job.
Seismically active. Yeah.
If Chris's writing career never works out, he can become an architect.
Out of foam.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was this episode of Podcast Beyond, the All Questions episode. We'll be back again next week with Greg and with the entire staff. And this week we're going to be taking you out with a twofer, meaning one song from two editors, that being Mr. Ryan and Mr. Jeff.
Woo. Well, you guys have parts too. Don't forget.
Which we may take part in.
Yeah, we
You
may.
should keep it up, and then we'll see how it goes.
Our part is optional. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
If we don't do it, which is me hinting, telling you we're not gonna.
Yeah.
You might want to fill in the parts that you expected
Come
us
on,
to
you
do.
guys got to do it.
Hey,
I
No,
totally
let-
forgot what I had to do. Was the
I'm
problem.
just- I'm just
no,
doing the
don't
rhythm.
ruin it. Don't ruin it. Just start it, and then keep it up yourself.
I'm
and
just
then,
doing the
Oh
rhythm.
wait, I remember what it is.
Get yourself down so they can hear it. All right.
Fine.
Do me a favor. Point at Chris and I when it's our turn, so we know.
Yeah, you'll
I'm not
know.
going to do it.
You'll know.
But
I'm
let's
just
go.
doing the rhythm. Ready?
Yep. Buddy with a PS3, not the week. Can't you see this ain't a show about the fucking 360? We cover Sony news here. Got nothing to fear, cause if you like those other consoles, then we'll podcast here. Saying we will podcast.
Beyond.
Podcast.
Beyond.
We will podcast.
Beyond.
Podcast.
Beyond. See you next week. We'll see you next week, everybody.